Hello and Ya'ali Mother. We hope you and your families are healthy and safe at home. My name is Zahida Lalji and I am part of the AKEPB Personal Finance team. I'm here again with Kerry Clark, our financial literacy trainer, and Inara Samani, fellow AKEPB team member. And we would like to welcome you to the third part of Managing Your Money sessions. Hello, Kerry and Inara.
Hello, Zahida and Inara. It's once again a pleasure to be here on our third session. The aim of today's session is to encourage our listeners to establish their financial goals as a household unit, to learn to distinguish the difference between a goal that is a want and a goal that is a need, and that because household income is finite, they have to make choices. This is step 2 of making a budget, thinking about what your goals are, how much they cost, and creating a plan for achieving them. You might ask, what do goals have to do with maintaining a budget that helps me get through the month?
It's funny you should say that. That was actually going to be my first question. I think of a budget as tracking my money in order to see if and where I need to cut back on spending. I hadn't thought about my goals actually being part of my budget.
Yes, that describes me. I discovered that I was spending 42% of my income on housing expenses. Since I live alone, I learned that an average percentage spent on housing needs to be closer to 25%. I am now thinking about finding accommodation that is more in line with the average percentage, so that I would have more of my income for other expenditures and future goals.
So, back to the first question. How does identifying goals relate to making a budget? I guess that since a budget is a plan, then planning for goals needs to be part of one's budget, right?
Correct. Here's another analogy related to planning, besides the one we gave about slicing the pie. If you think of your budget like we do about going on a trip or a vacation, the first thing you decide is, where do you want to go? Then, if you're going to drive, you pull up a map and plan you're going to get there, focusing on how much is it going to cost.
So, if I have identified that I need new, less costly accommodation, that's deciding where I want to go. Now I need a map of how to get there, right?
Yes, that's how I understand the process. In life, everyone has hopes and dreams, most of which take money to achieve. So people know that they need to save, and many people do save. And then something happens and those savings are suddenly needed for an emergency. The one everyone can relate to in some capacity is the situation we currently find ourselves as a consequence of COVID-19. The present economic climate will be putting a strain on most households' finances, and the long-term impact is still unknown, but let's not go into that right now. Even without such drastic events, there are always unexpected emergencies like medical expenses or home repairs. I've heard so many times the comment, all my savings were wiped out, or I always save, but I never seem to get anywhere. It's one step forward and 2 steps back.
That's what we're talking about today. There are steps to ensure we are saving effectively. This session is not just about making a wish list of future goals, like having enough money for a down payment of a house or university fees for our children. But we are going to unpack our thinking about goals and how to achieve them. We're going to look at how goals differ from each other, not just because they cost more or less, but also in terms of timelines. We'll be asking you to define your goals in terms of how much, by when, priority, and do I have savings towards that now?
I remember reading a tip about setting goals in a class of mine on project management. If you don't know where you are going, chances are you won't get there.
That's a good one. I read that people who put their goals on paper are significantly more likely to achieve them than those who merely make mental vows. And it also said that posting your goals in places where you see it often is also key to accomplishment. Our ability to make things happen matters most the moment we make a resolution, and we'll be able to recapture the intensity of that moment again and again when we see it. So Kerry, are there any resources you can recommend about budgeting or goal setting?
Yes, and that's a great point, Sahida. I'd like to mention that information about budgeting and goal setting is available in many different places and from many financial planning gurus. One book I enjoyed many years ago that is still relevant is The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clason. This book offered common sense financial advice told through ancient parables. It was written in 1926.
Wow, that's almost 100 years ago. Is this book even still available? And does it really have anything to say to us today?
Oddly enough, principles of saving and investing and budgeting seem to be the same throughout history.
I would agree with that. Now, can we talk a little bit about how you started focusing on setting goals, please?
You know, mostly in life, we learn from experiences and from the people we come across, especially if we keep our eyes and ears open. That's how it happened for me. I had a friend who was a project manager, and one evening I overheard him telling someone about how he started setting goals for his family. More or less, here's what he said. Let me tell you how my wife and I decided on our goals. We had goals for different lengths of time. It became clear that goals come in three categories: short, medium, and long term. A short-term goal is 1 year or less. Fixing a bathroom in our house and starting an emergency fund would be short-term goals. A medium-term goal takes more than 1 year, but less than 5. Paying down debt with the credit union and saving for a down payment on a house would take up to 5 years. Obviously, putting aside money for our pension is a long-term goal that will take more than 5 years. The exercise was good for my family. We discussed for the first time that the household income goes only so far and that there is a difference between goals that are needs and goals that are wants. Compromises have to be made and goals have to be prioritized. We argued about things we wanted immediately, but decided that if we could wait, we would have other things we needed more. We began putting aside money each month into a goals account. Does that story make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Inara, what would be a short-term goal for you?
I already have one. I need to plan for moving into a more reasonably priced apartment that fits into my 25% housing budget.
So I have a medium-term goal I hope to achieve, which is remodeling my kitchen.
Kerry, could you share one of your long-term goals with us?
Now, granted, I am a bit older than you, so long-term goals can look different for me. However, a long-term goal shared by everyone is planning and saving for retirement. The younger you are, the less you have to put down each year for your retirement.
Kerry, could you please address the comments from people about their savings? Like every now and then my savings gets wiped out. What are they talking about?
Sahida, that's a bit complicated for today's short session. However, there are several forces at play here. The main one relates to the fact that some bills are paid monthly and some are paid quarterly or yearly. Because when a paycheck arrives, it looks like the whole paycheck can be spent, even if you take the 10% right off the top for savings.
You know, Carrie, when my quarterly bills come, sometimes I dip into my savings to pay my bills that come periodically. And then I'm one of those who say, my savings keep getting wiped out.
Yes, that makes sense. Kerry, you're pointing out the idea that there must be a separate category of savings for those periodically paid bills, right?
Exactly. Just like we suggested that everyone divide their expenditures into wants and needs, they also must divide their savings into categories. We need to put money aside for regular bills, whether they are paid monthly or periodically. And this money is not savings. It's already earmarked to be spent.
Carrie, I can see why you've said that making a budget takes time and effort. These ideas that you are giving us are new for me. I can see that I'm going to have to do some work.
Yes, it's true that in these short sessions we can't really go over everything. But I would like you, Kerry, to finish by giving us some pointers for making our goals.
Sahida, we've included in this session a worksheet that listeners can have access to. When people sit down to discuss their family goals, here's what they need to include in the plan. As you make your list, be sure to focus on the following, and remember, it won't happen in one conversation with the family. First, decide by when. By when would you like to achieve this goal? Then, think about costs. How much is it going to cost? Next, saved. Do you have any amount of money saved towards that goal now? Then, figure out how much per month would it have to be put aside in order to reach the goal on the timeline you've put in place.
And Carrie, what's our homework this week?
Homework? Homework is think about your family goals. Discuss with your family members short, medium, and long-term goals. You might talk about the difference between needs and wants.
Kerry, once again, you've given us some great tools to continue with creating our budget. Thank you so much. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us. We hope we have found this session useful, and we look forward to you joining us again next week.
Thank you, ladies, and please stay safe, everyone.
Should you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact AKEPB via email on akepbUKinfo@iiuk.org. Kerry and the AKEPB team will be very happy to answer any questions.
We pray for the continued health and safety of everyone in the Jamaat during this time. Ya Ali Madad and Kada Hafiz.